When Republican Congressman Ron Paul won the Conservative Political Action Conference straw poll in February of this year, it seemed he was headed for another 2012 run for president. But on Saturday, someone else took the spotlight at the Virginia Tea Party Patriots Convention. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie won the 2012 presidential straw poll with 14%. Ron Paul came in third with 12.5%. Is Ron Paul losing his grip on the party he helped create? Joining me now from his district in Clute, Texas, Ron Paul. Congressman, thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, you cite that election. I think the difference between the first and third place was 28 votes. So I don't think that's a movement quite yet.
Look,
I think Chris Christie certainly deserves some credit for being bold, because everybody talks about cutting, and he did it. So I think he certainly deserves some attention for that. But it's not too startling when you think that just a few votes difference between first, second, and third.
But you've been the anti-government guy your entire career. Chris Christie comes out of nowhere. He talks tough with the teachers union and thinks maybe he might cancel an infrastructure project, and suddenly he's on top of the poll. How did that make you feel? This Johnny come lately jumping in there.
Yeah, like I said, I was 28 votes behind out of 1,500 votes. So I think it's very interesting, and I wouldn't want to take anything away from him, and I don't think it has a whole lot of significance. That's all. Just like how many people thought it was real significant that I won the CPAC poll last year. Did you think that was earth-shattering? No, I don't think that was earth-shattering either.
Let's get to the Tea Party, and let's start with term limits. The Tea Party's in favor of term limits. Your son is in favor of term limits. In his Kentucky debate tonight, he said this.
I think my greatest attribute is that I've never held office. I think we have too many people that go and stay for a career.
Now, your son is clearly talking about you. You've been in Congress for 20 years. What do you need to teach Rand about the value of your experience and seniority in Congress?
Well, one of the agreements we had when I came on your show was we weren't going to talk about other candidates, so I'm not going to talk about other candidates. But you also said the Tea Party people...
I wasn't part of any agreement in you coming on the show. If someone made an agreement with you, I don't know about it. No one said anything about it. But go ahead.
Well, then I think that's impolite then. I mean, I don't think that's polite not to have somebody say, yes, we wouldn't be talking about other candidates. But let me go ahead and answer your question. First, you said the Tea Party people had a position that supports term limits. The Tea Party, I don't know of any contract. All I know is my relationship with the Tea Party people, which was really the first step, and that was in December 16th of 2007. And they organized on their own to support my positions. And at that time, I can guarantee you, term limits never even came up. Now, do you want to know my position?
You obviously don't support term limits.
No, obviously, I have supported term limits. I've introduced legislations for term limits all through the 70s. I was the first one ever to introduce legislation like that. And
what would be the limit?
Also, we had about let me answer. Let me answer. And then in the 90s, we had about 6 or 8, maybe even 10 votes on term limits. I voted for all of them. So I would support it. But I've also made a very strong statement. Probably won't make a heck of a lot of difference, because it depends on what people believe. If you have term limits and people come in and they believe the same ideas about big government and big war and violation of our civil liberties and torture and assassinations, you bring those people in after term limits, you haven't changed anything. So I want to bring in people who are strict constitutionalists and don't believe the president can wage war without declaration, and that presidents can't assassinate American citizens. That is what is important, not whether you have term limits or not. But I have been
if term limits are good, why don't you self-impose term limits on yourself?
Well, because I just explained to you I didn't think term limits were all that great. Matter of fact, the people who self-limited term... Wait, let me answer. The people who self-limited themselves for 6 years... Some who were the conservative and more principled people left, and they were some very good people, and they believed in the Constitution. Those who got in saying, I'm going to term limit myself, frequently they didn't stick to their guns. Term limits are going to be effective this year. We are doing it in a very proper manner. The Tea Party people are limiting the terms of a lot of members of Congress, and a lot of people don't like that. So I think the discussion about legalizing and changing the Constitution, how long is it going to take you to change the Constitution? I think that's an academic discussion, and that's a distraction from the term limits that are going on right now, which the establishment politicians aren't very happy about.
Now, in that debate tonight in Kentucky, the subject of Medicare came up. Let's hear what they had to say about Medicare.
Rand Paul's against all of these various programs, all of these agencies of the government. The one thing he said that he wouldn't eliminate is the agency that pays to doctors in Medicare because he, quote unquote, wants to make a comfortable living. Well, there's the issue. You pay more, he gets more.
Now, why couldn't you get your son to do what you did as a doctor and simply refuse to take Medicare patients so that he could avoid this conflict of interest, this hypocrisy of being against Medicare, except when he can make money from it?
Maybe you should check out, because you just quoted his opponent, maybe you ought to check out that quote and see if it's accurate or not. That might make the difference. And quite frankly, I'm not answering for Rand. I mean, he has his own campaign, and he's doing quite well, and he's ahead, and people are panicking, and I see establishment people like to knock him down another notch. But that's not relevant to what's going on here. Of course, we're going to have some disagreements. People in the libertarian movement and in my campaign, we have disagreements, but no, I don't think that's all that relevant. My position on this is very simply that we need to cut spending. We don't need to throw people out in the street who are dependent, that we have taught to be dependent on medical care. So I don't, even though I don't believe those programs are constitutional for a minute, I don't believe the federal government should be in education.
You would abolish
we should
Medicare
be running medical care. Now, wait, let me answer. Let me answer this. That I would cut, in order to make sure they didn't lose their medical care, but I would cut those hundreds of billions of dollars overseas spending in these wars. I would not allow Obama to expand these wars, and I would keep that money here and tide people over until we came to our senses here and live within our means. That is what we need to do. That is an answer to the Medicaid and the Medicare and the medical problem that we have in this country.
We're going to have Rand's quote on Medicare on our website, so you can see that he actually was not misquoted by Jack Conway there. But if you had your chance in the Congress,
out of context,
you would abolish Medicare, wouldn't you?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
No, I just got done explaining to you.
No, you didn't. Not exactly. It's a socialistic program that you libertarians would abolish. It's the first one you'd abolish, isn't it?
Now let me explain to you. It's going to abolish itself when we go bankrupt and the money fails, and we're on the verge of a dollar crisis, and the checks won't buy anything. The medical care in this country is going down. So what I want to do is, at least in a temporary way, is preserve what we have and not hurt these people. So listen once again. The only way we can do this is we have to live within our means. We have to cut. I want to cut the war spending of Obama. I want to cut all this expense overseas. I've joined with Barney Frank in this effort to cut spending overseas, bring troops home from Korea, bring troops home from Europe, and help these people who are dependent on the government. I think it's wrong to be dependent, and you're right. It shouldn't happen. We should work for the day when these individuals can take care of themselves once again, be self-reliant. I practiced medicine before Medicare came in. And when we didn't have Medicare, people were never...
for abolish Medicare. That's just code language for abolish Medicare. You want to get rid of Medicare.
Oh, yeah, okay. If you want to keep putting words in my mouth, go ahead. But I think people who are listening here at this program will have reason to understand what I'm saying. See, you're ignoring the fact on how you work your way out of this. I have the transition program. So what happens in 10 or 20 or 30 years from now is another subject. I'm trying to say, if you want to have medical care for the elderly or education for our children, you can't do it by running up trillions of dollars of debt a year. That is my beef. My beef is this, that we have to cut. But I don't come out and say, oh, well, we're spending too much. What we have to do is cut Medicare. We want to abolish Medicare. You're absolutely distorting my views. My views are this, and I should get a lot, and I do get a lot of support from the left because they understand. The true progressive understands what I'm saying, because I'm saying stop the wars, stop this warmongering, stop this war on terror and assassination.
You're very clear about the wars. You always have been. I appreciate your clarity on that. I do think you could be more clear on Medicare, but let's get to the Civil Rights Act. On the 40th anniversary of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, you said this on the floor of the House. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 did not improve race relations or enhance freedom. Now, you were not subject to segregation before the 1964 Civil Rights Act, so is it possible that you don't know or you don't understand that the removal of segregation was, in fact, an enhancement of freedom for African Americans who were not allowed to drink from the same drinking fountain as you were, who were not allowed to patronize certain restaurants, who were not allowed to do all sorts of things? Their freedom was very sharply restricted by law until that law. So how can you say that it did not enhance freedom?
Well, what I have said is certain portions of that bill were unconstitutional. By getting rid of the laws in the states that were blatantly unconstitutional, and were illegal, they should have been repealed. There's nothing wrong with repealing these things, but to take over private property is a different thing. Taking over private property to tell people what to do with their private property is like taking over the bedrooms and saying what you're going to do in the bedroom.
You mean
so
if
you can take,
right? You mean those dining.
I'm talking about private property. I am talking about all private property. Wait.
You mean those dining counters that black people tried to integrate? You think those should not have been integrated because that's private property?
No, listen, Lawrence, listen to me, because those were all the laws that were written. Martin Luther King,
did it
if you knew
enhance
anything about
freedom
me,
to
you
get
know
rid
that,
of those laws? Did it enhance freedom to get rid of those laws?
No, look, you're grossly misrepresenting what I'm saying.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964 did not improve race relations or enhance freedom. The words of Ron Paul, word for word, you said that.
Well, if you understood exactly what the freedom philosophy does, it brings people together. Martin Luther King did not advocate some of the things that go on today. What he advocated was treating everybody equally and get rid of the laws. See, he practiced a libertarian principle by saying that, by practicing civil disobedience. That is great. Nullification of the laws, civil disobedience, in order to repeal the laws. Segregation in this country has always been the government. Just think of the military, the army, the slavery. It's only the libertarian principles of treating everybody as an individuals. So slavery on up to the military, guess where the first real integration occurred? Voluntarily in sports. So the portions of the law in 1964 that were bad because they violated property rights, I object to that because it violates the property rights of people who want to have privacy in their bedroom. And that private, economic and personal liberty are all in the same. So when you understand that, you understand. See, Barry Goldwater was opposed to that, and he wasn't considered an evil person. Back then, Chris Matthews was a supporter of Barry Goldwater on his position. So to demagogue this and pick this up, I think you're really desperate.
Congressman, let's not try to pretend that libertarianism is what changed segregation in this country. It was activist, liberal government that changed segregation. Otherwise, it would still be with us. It took activist, liberal Washington government in the Civil Rights Act to end that segregation that you properly decry. All right, sure. We're going to go out on that agreement.
We want to repeal. We want to repeal.
You got the last word.
All you need to do is repeal the Jim Crow laws. all we say is that you repeal the bad laws and you treat people equally under the law. That is what you do. And unfortunately today, everything is done by group rights. Individuals have rights. You don't have rights because you belong to a group. Property rights are identical to personal liberty and social liberties. And you have property rights. Your right to be on TV is a property rights because people can't march in to your station and have prior restraint. And that is exactly what all property. You can't pick and choose on your property and say, oh, you can have private property rights and freedom in your church, but not in your store, your house, and whatnot. So it is a poor understanding that brings us to this. So I should say that it is the libertarian that understands this, and Martin Luther King understood this, and he used libertarian principles by practicing peaceful civil disobedience and also repealing laws. Here in the early part of the program, you condemn me for wanting to repeal laws. Well, I'm the one that wants to repeal the Jim Crow laws. That's what we wanted to do. That's what a libertarian wants. So you don't understand that, and that's okay, but others have.
Congressman Ron Paul,
so check with your staff, too. Check with your staff about your agreements. I mean, you just were very discourteous on what you have done, and this is not the debate that you had asked for. And so, therefore, after you're doing a very nice thing, you gave me a very nice quote on your program, I believe. One night, read my whole quote.
Listen, no one has been, look, you're so plain-spoken in certain situations. No one has been clearer, more powerful on this issue of locating a Islamic center near Ground Zero. No one's been more clear on that. I wish we had more time to talk about Medicare and other issues. Congressman Ron Paul, Republican of Texas, I thank you very much for joining us. Please come back and let's do more of this.
Well, good luck. Good luck.
Okay.